Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. Great. I want to thank everybody for coming and welcome you today. My name is Rebecca, and I work with the City of Santa Rosa Water Department and Conservation. We have Spanish interpretation available today, and Lee, our interpreter, will give us instructions on how to access that. Can you give us some voice instructions, Lee? I gotcha. We're not hearing you, but we do have some instructions in the chat.
Is it because she's not spotlit?
It might be that she's already in the
Oh, in
interpretation
the
room.
interpretation room. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. And this is our Garden Snippets program, which is a series of mini workshops for the Sonoma County Master Gardeners and Santa Rosa Water, co-hosted by both of us. Today we'll be discussing the ways to optimize your irrigation for the growing season with a primary focus on drip irrigation, but we will answer questions about all kinds of irrigation. It's a 15-minute presentation and then 15 minutes of Q&A. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box, not the chat, and that will help us keep track of your questions. And this session is being recorded and it will be posted on our website a few weeks after this event in the workshop section of the website. And our website also has our latest information on rebates and services offered from the City of Santa Rosa. And I'm delighted now to turn this over to Leslie Hart, our featured Master Gardener today.
Thank you, Rebecca. Welcome to everybody and to tonight's topic. Three of my Master Gardener Garden Sense colleagues, Kim Nielsen-Glynn, Mary Lou Milkoff, and Mark Soulard, are here ready to answer questions during and after this presentation. Let's begin by talking about what irrigation maintenance is and why it's important. Just like appliances in our homes, we need to check our irrigation system from time to time, making sure that it's working properly and addressing the watering needs of our landscape. Spring is a good time to do a full system check, following the winter when we usually don't irrigate, unless it's really dry. There are components to check and repair, as well as changes to make in response to what is happening in our landscapes and what our needs are. This webinar was designed to give you an overview of what to look for and some of the specific actions you can take. Here are the components of a single irrigation station or zone. In blue are the components that control the timing and water pressure of your irrigation system. These include a timer or irrigation controller, sensors, backflow prevention device, valve, filter, and pressure regulator. We can refer to these as the front end of the system. Sprinkler systems share many of these components. In green are the components that deliver water to the landscape. These include distribution and inline emitter tubing, point source emitters, and fittings. Let's start with actions at the front end of your irrigation system. Turn on the irrigation controller and sensors. Activate one valve at a time. You can do this manually or by using your controller, depending on the type of controller or timer that you have. Make sure these all work properly. Troubleshoot non-working components. For example, lack of communication between the controller and a valve may indicate a disconnected wire at the valve. Repair as needed. This is also a good time to review and update your controller or timer programming. If you have battery-operated valves, be sure to replace their batteries at least once a year. Spring is a great time to do this. Unscrew the faceplate and you will find the battery inside. Check and clean the filters on valves, pop-up conversion kits, and/or hose bib assemblies. You will likely need to do this more often if your water source is a well. On the left, you see me opening the filter on a valve. There is some material on the inside of the filter. I'm on municipal water, so there isn't very much. Remove and rinse filters with running water. If the filter is really dirty, especially from well water, you can use an old toothbrush to clean it. If you have a timer attached to an outdoor faucet, replace the battery or batteries on a yearly basis. Again, spring is a good time to do this. If you have not already done so, add a check valve, filter, and pressure regulator. These components protect your house water and the drip emitters. And the group of those components we call a hose bib assembly. A hose bib is an outdoor faucet. Be sure to clean the filter. Review and update the watering schedule. You may want to set yourself reminders to change the programming on a monthly basis. Reinstall the timer. We recommend that you bring your timer inside during the winter. Remove the batteries and install new batteries every spring. On the resource slide near the end of this presentation, you will see a link to our Garden Sense page, which includes links to a number of handouts and other resources, including one for the hose bib assembly. You can print it out and take it to the irrigation store. The staff will help you find the parts you need to install. Note that there are multiple filter and pressure regulator possibilities. And I meant to mention at the beginning of my presentation, if you have your phone and want to take pictures of any of these slides, feel free to do so. And there will also be a recording of this available in a couple of weeks. In the center of this slide, you can see a graph of water needs of plants and rainfall in our county. Look at the blue line. It's really a turquoise line with a red arrow going to it. This shows the plant water needs that peak in July. Your plants don't need as much water in the spring, and especially not in the fall, as they do in the summer months. There are a couple of online irrigation scheduling tools that you can use to help you update your controller or hose bib timer programming. They take into account the changing water needs of plants in our county throughout the irrigation season and thus help you to conserve water in your landscape. One is a monthly lawn and landscape watering schedule from Santa Rosa Water. A snapshot of the drip irrigation part of this handout is on the left-hand side of the screen. These drip recommendations were developed for Santa Rosa conditions for low water use plants and specific flow rates, such as 0.6 gallons per hour for inline drip. This handout also contains recommendations for other types of irrigation, such as pop-up and rotary sprinklers, not shown on this slide. The other scheduling tool was developed by the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership to address different areas of the county. For drip irrigation, it provides recommendations for plants with a number of different water needs and in different parts of the county. This tool is available from the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership website. Like the Santa Rosa tool, it also contains recommendations for other types of irrigation. Links to both of these tools are on the Santa Rosa WaterSmart Water Recommendations website, and that link is shown here on the right-hand side of the slide, and it's also on one of the last pages of this presentation in the resources. Let's move to talking about the irrigation lines. We recommend that you flush your irrigation lines every spring as part of bringing your irrigation system online. Flushing is especially important if your water source is a well. Flushing blows out debris, especially important to do at the beginning of the season, as unwanted materials may have settled in your tubing. Identify where your flush out is with something memorable, such as this garden gnome or a flag. If you currently don't have flushes in your lines, they are easy to add. See this photo on the right. Cut into the line, add a T-fitting, a section of blank tubing, and an end cap or figure eight. Here's a video of how to flush your line. You can see it only takes a few seconds. We recommend that you check one irrigation station or zone and all of its associated tubing, fittings, emitters, and plants at the same time. If possible, pull up your irrigation line so you can see them. Walk the whole length of the tubing. Listen and look for leaks and clogs. These may take the form of geysers, fast or muffled spraying or gurgling sounds, puddles, runoff, dry spots, signs of erosion, green areas, water stains on fences, or poor plant performance. Repair and or replace components as needed. Looking for soggy or wet ground is especially important if you can't bring all of your irrigation line to the surface. Here are some examples of damage you may come across and how to repair them. Even though you can often hear leaks, they can be invisible after you turn the water off. In this example, my husband nicked half-inch distribution tubing with the lawnmower. You can barely see it in the first photo. I marked the damage with flags. If you don't have flags, use some other way to mark the place of the damage, such as tape or string or an unusual rock. To repair a leak like this one, turn off the irrigation, cut the tubing cleanly, and reconnect the ends with a coupler. We master gardeners prefer the locking type of coupler, as you can see in this last photo. And these are often called power locks, which is just one of the manufacturers of these types of fittings. Here's an example of gopher damage in 1/4-inch inline emitter tubing. As I described for half-inch repair, cut the tubing squarely and reconnect the ends, this time with a 1/4-inch coupler. If you have to cut out one of the embedded emitters, you can splice in a new section. Do the same with 1/4-inch distribution tubing. Missing emitters are generally easy to see as a stream of water or by nearby wet surfaces, such as this fence. Repair by installing a new emitter. You may need to put a goof plug in the hole and add the new emitter close by. Better yet, cut out the section, splice in a piece of new distribution tubing, and add a new emitter. Locking fittings make it easy to splice half-inch tubing. You can apply this splicing principle to other problems or changes you may want to make to your irrigation tubing. Make adjustments to your system. Move lines and add emitters to accommodate plant growth, additions of new plants, and the loss of plants. Make sure irrigation lines are 4 to 6 inches away from woody stems or trunks. Mary Lou will talk more about this in the August garden snippet. Here are components that are great to have on hand as your own repair kit. And this is definitely a phone picture to take if you're doing that. Include extra tubing of various kinds, fittings, goof plugs, and staples. Don't forget the tools you need to work with them, such as a hole punch and something to cut tubing, such as pruning shears, and something to mark damaged tubing, such as flags or tape. Here are a few improvements that you might consider making at the beginning of the irrigation season, or actually any time during the year. Use one of the scheduling tools to update your controller or hose bib timer. Add backflow prevention filters and pressure regulators to valves and hose bib timers that are going to drip irrigation. Try inline drip in one of your irrigation zones, especially if you have some gnarly spaghetti with point source emitters. Modify the placement of your irrigation lines to begin grouping plants with similar water needs together, which is called hydrozoning. Check out the drip irrigation video and other information on our Master Gardener website and Santa Rosa Water's website. Here are the resources I mentioned from the City of Santa Rosa and our Master Gardener web pages. The first resource is the City of Santa Rosa page about watering recommendations, which includes links for both of those irrigation scheduling tools, as well as a lot of other good information about saving water in your landscape. The second resource is a drip irrigation basics video that Mary Lou Mark and I created a couple of years ago for Santa Rosa Water. It's on our Master Gardener YouTube channel, and this is the direct link to the video. You can also explore the drip irrigation and Garden Sense pages for further resources. Consider signing up for a Garden Sense visit. We are free. We are the only Sonoma County Master Gardener program that visits homeowners in person. We provide education and advice on site about irrigation and low water use plant choices. We'll even leave you with a little sketch with some ideas. All four of us are both master gardeners and Garden Sense consultants. Here are ways to contact the UC Master Gardener program in Sonoma County if you have questions about anything gardening related, especially that's not specific landscape. Email is the best way to get help from us via this information table. Both Santa Rosa Water and Sonoma County Master Gardeners have very useful websites with much practical information. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And now it's time for questions. I will go ahead and end my slideshow and stop sharing. Okay.
Well, Leslie, there's one question that I was hoping that Eve could provide a little more information. The question was, why can't you buy one unit instead of 3 times? And it might be a timer, is what she means, instead of times, filter, timer, etc.
Would you
Why
ask
can't
that
you buy
again?
one unit instead of 3?
You should be able to, well, one thing that I didn't mention is that we do recommend that you go to irrigation stores for your equipment rather than to the big box stores. And I don't know, you should be able to buy one filter, one pressure regulator. Oh, I should start my video. Oh, it disappeared when there we go. Okay. Thank you. So did I answer the question, do you think, or do you have a better idea what it might be about?
She says, yes, you have to buy 3 different components.
Oh, you have to buy 3 different components. Yes. Sometimes the filter and pressure regulator comes together. But you do have to get a separate backflow prevention device. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Do you
Mark,
know
you can
why?
put Mark, you can put your camera on and unmute yourself.
Eve was wondering why you have to buy the different components separately.
Because, one of the reasons is if you're on well water instead of municipal water, you need a much bigger filter than you do. And the pressure regulators come in different sizes, and we have plenty of manufacturers of these. So I'm going to actually see if Mark or Mary Lou have anything to add.
If she's talking about the 3 components being the valve, the the filter unit, and the pressure reducer, then like you mentioned, sometimes you can buy a combination pressure reducer and filter unit, but still you need a valve to be able to operate that section of your irrigation.
Yeah.
And Judy wants to know how you know which emitters to get for the gallons per hour.
Okay, so that has to do with the type of soil you have. And we have I believe in our drip irrigation basics video that I mentioned, that we address that. Briefly, if you have, particularly if you're talking inline drip, which we highly recommend, and I believe City of Santa Rosa also does, that if you're on clay, you probably want the 0.4 gallon per hour, 12-inch spacing. If you are, or 18-inch spacing if you're on clay. If you're on sandy soil, you're probably up at 0.6 gallon per hour and 12-inch spacing.
Well, sandy soil, you might want to go to 0.9.
all the way to 0.9. So sandy loam, 0.6, and loam, sort of the middle of the what we call the middle types. Clay is the slowest to the water is the slowest to infiltrating clay and the fastest in sand because of the particle size.
And
So
when we're talking about matching your application rate with your flow rate, I mean your flow rate with your with the soil type you have, we want to make sure that we don't apply the water so fast that it starts running
yeah,
off.
yeah,
And so that's important to know. And then there again, you need to match, Leslie just mentioned, zero point 0.4 is usually for clay soil, zero point 0.6 is for a loamy soil, and zero point 0.9 is for a sandy soil because the water will penetrate faster and go through the soil. So you want to be able to apply it at a faster rate.
So she has clay soil. So she would
Okay.
use
0.4 gallon per hour.
Or 0.6, depending on what she
0.6.
has. And then if we're usually referring to a flat terrain for the most part.
Yep.
If she has a hillside, she might want to go. There's one manufacturer that puts a 0.26. I think is it, yeah, 0.26 application rate, which is for hilly clay soil.
Yep.
So
Lori says, my error, I have a 40 PSI regulator on one of my valves. I guess she wants to know if that's okay.
Well,
So
just talked about that. So
we were talking about that before we started.
and
And if she's there and can type something in that, I mean, we're curious why there's a single one with 40 PSI and the rest are 25. So you're probably fine with keeping your 40 on there. It's within range. You might get a little bit of extra pressure at the very beginning. And so you need to, if you've got point source emitters, you might want to make sure they're not being popped off. And that's, Mark, if you wanted to say anything more about that.
the reason she probably has 25s and then a 40 is because when people buy pressure regulators, they generally don't read the writing on the side of the pressure regulator, and you just you're looking at everything in the bins and you're saying, oh, there's one, and you just choose it without realizing that you're buying something with a 40 psi pressure regulator. But there's nothing wrong with it, just as long as you stay 40 and below.
Yep.
Okay, there's a question about is there an irrigation system you recommend for container gardening?
Yes.
yes,
And one of the things well, first of all, if you've got containers and you've also got stuff in the ground, you want to have a separate line for your pots or your containers because they need to be watered more often. They don't have access to any water in the soil per se, so they generally need to be watered every day. So that's what we call a separate hydrozone. And I think Mary Lou may be talking more about those in August. And she's nodding her head. And there's going to be an article coming out in the PD in the next month or two, I think, from Kim talking about hydrozones. So we refer you to keep an eye on that if you get the PD. So then one thing that I do is I have the half-inch distribution tubing and then quarter-inch tubing going up to my container. And I put quarter-inch inline drip, 6-inch spacing in there. And I'll often put a little valve on there so I can shut it off if I want to fallow the pot. Other options are to use a couple of bubblers in there. And I'll ask Mary Lou and Mark and Kim what they do for pots, containers.
exactly. I take it up to the pot, put an elbow in, put the 6-inch inline drip around, and off we go.
And you can, rather than putting a T into where it comes into the distribution tubing, because pots are small, you don't have to be worried about the length of your tubing, that if you just put a goof plug in the end, then it's easy to unwind them if there's some change to your plants that are going on there. In that,
Yeah, I know I have had the bright idea of putting the 1/4 inch up through the pot hole so
mm-hmm.
that it wouldn't show, it looked prettier and all that. But then when I wanted to move the pot, it wasn't happening. So I learned the hard way that that wasn't a good idea.
And
All
I
those
do
experience.
basically the same thing on for container gardens, but yeah, it's important. You mentioned Leslie that you could add a bubbler. You gotta you gotta
Oh,
keep the type of irrigation in all your
the same.
pots the
Same.
same so that you
Yep.
know how fast you're applying the water.
Yep.
Because if you're introducing, a stream rotor, or I'm not a stream rotor, but a a a, a any other type of application, if you're going with inline drip, stay with inline drip
Yep.
throughout. If you're going to bubblers, stay with bubblers
Yep.
throughout.
All the way out, all the way through. Yep.
Mhm.
Tim, what do you do?
I used the little 1/4 inch inline drip. That's what I use. One more question here. Explain the benefit of backflow prevention on a hose bib timer.
Ooh,
Okay, Mark, all yours.
good one.
The concern comes is how important is your domestic water to you? The water you drink, the water you bathe with, the water you cook with. Um, there is value in putting some kind of backflow prevention on your irrigation system so it doesn't get back into your domestic water system.
And that goes for whether it's valves or whether it's a hose bib timer.
It doesn't really matter, and usually on hose bib timers you have a check valve, which is a non-testable um, backflow device, but it works just as well.
Mm-hmm. And on the handout on the Garden Sense page, you can see all the components there. And so if you're interested in, taking care of that and getting that backflow prevention device, you take it to your irrigation store and say, okay, give me your version of this, please. And give you a hand. And some irrigation stores will also may ask you a little bit about whether you're on a well or on municipal water, and that affects the type of filter that you have on there.
And sometimes they need to know how high your hose bib is off the ground.
Yes.
Sometimes there's not
Yes.
much clearance.
And so on the back of that handout is one that it's a shorter one. It's got what's called a T filter on it. So you can be closer to the ground on that one.
And in a lot of cases, when we go on garden sense visits, we see a lot of different installations of atmospheric vacuum breakers. And in a lot of instances, they're improperly installed where they're at the ground or below ground level. Um, they need to be 6 inches above the top of the atmospheric vacuum breaker needs to be 6 inches above your distribution point downstream to function properly.
Meaning the highest plant that's being watered.
Yes, yes.
But the ground for that plant, and you're talking about those
Ground for
Mark,
that
those
plant.
standard valves that some people call anti-siphon valves, but are technically the atmospheric breaker valves, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Not the ones that are in the ground. That are underground, rather, not the ones that are underground. Those
Yes.
need a different backflow prevention, but we're not going to go that direction at this point. So that would take the rest of the evening.
Yeah, and I
Any
think
more questions, Kim?
I
No?
think that's about it. So timing is excellent.
Yeah, we're right on 6 o'clock. Okay. We hope we've given you some useful information here that you can apply directly, and feel free to see if you're interested in a Garden Sense visit, and look for this video in a while.
Yep.
We're up on the Santa Rosa water site.
Yeah, it'll be up on the City of Santa Rosa website, which is srcity.org/watersmart in a few weeks. And I want to thank our master gardeners, Leslie Hart and Kim and Mary Lou and Mark, for helping us make sense of irrigation as we get started with our season. And thanks to everybody who attended for your questions.
Mhm.
Great.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.